I had a funny experience this week. I was speaking with an American and we were mentioning the fact that I live in Canada, and she said, "Oh yes, I can hear your Canadian accent." And the very next day I was speaking to a group of Canadians, a family here in our congregation, and we were talking about the fact that I grew up in the US, and they said, "Oh yes, we hear your American accent." So which is it? Do I sound like an American? Do I sound like a Canadian? Now I'm thinking about how I'm saying each of the words in this moment. But it was really funny, and it sort of demonstrates the way that we are a product of our environment. I guess I speak Canadian enough to sound Canadian, but also the ways in which we stand in contradistinction to those around us, that the Americans thought of me as Canadian, that the Canadians thought of me as an American. And in this week's parasha, we ask this very question about how we look at a person in relation to their surroundings, to the people around them. We meet Noach, who is Ish Tzaddik, according to our text. In the very opening verse of our parsha, we're told he is a righteous man. And then the text continues, Tamim Haya, he was perfect, he was wholesome, Bidorotav. It uses this qualifier about his righteousness being Bidorotav, in his generation. And so Rashi presents two possible ways of understanding the significance of the fact that he was righteous in his generation. One possibility is that this is lishvach, to his credit, to his praise. Rashi says, Kohl she'ilu haya bedor tzadikim. How much more so had he been surrounded by righteous people? Haya tzadik yoter. He would have been even more righteous. If someone like this could remain righteous, surrounded by a generation of wicked people who were so wicked to have then eventually deserved the flood. Wow, he must have been a really special person if he could be so different from those around him. V'yesh dorshim, and then there's another perspective, Rashi says, he's quoting the Midrash, that this is to his detriment. The fact that he was righteous in this generation means that for this generation of wicked, Lefi Doro, Hayat Tzaddik, we would consider him righteous. But he really wasn't anything so special. Ve'ilu haya b'doro shel Avraham, had he been in another generation, for example, if you would compare him to Avraham, in the generation of Avraham, lo haya nechshav l'chlum, he would have been nothing. He wouldn't have been so special. And so the idea of qualifying Noach's righteousness by saying bidorotav, in his generation, it minimizes how great he was. It's only as compared to the wicked people around him that he was righteous. So it's playing with this idea of how much are we a product of our surroundings? How much are we standing apart or different from those around us? And the character of Noach really represents both possibilities. On the one hand, it is a generation that lacks ethics and morals and any sense of God-fearing people. And he is the only one. He listens to God. He builds that ark. He believes what God is telling him. And so he is righteous, surrounded by people who were not like him, who were not like-minded. But at the same time, maybe he wasn't so righteous. Noach is a character that takes care of himself, takes care of his family, gets on the ark, seals himself away, and doesn't influence those around him. I had a teacher who likened this to what happens when it's cold in the room. Some people say, it's cold, let me see if I can adjust the thermostat, turn on the heat, everybody will be warmer. And then others say, it's cold, I'm going to put on a sweater. And that's Noach. Noach sees destruction around him, he saves himself. He's not able to be an influence to those around him and to shift the wickedness that he sees around him. In our tradition, There's a sense of both of these realities being acknowledged in the saying, Oy l'rasha, oy l'shcheno, woe to the wicked, woe to his neighbor, and tov l'tzadik, tov l'shcheno. It's good for the righteous, it's good for his or her neighbor as well, that we are influenced by the people around us. And at the same time, we have the teaching of b'makom she'ein ish, when there isn't a person in your surroundings who is doing the right thing, yishtadel lihiyot ish, you be that person. You stand up for what's right. You be different from those around you. And so I think Noach is a character that represents this tension. Maybe I'm Canadian enough to sound Canadian, or maybe to the Americans I'm sounding Canadian, but to the Canadian I'm sounding American. Of course, it's not only with something as simple as one's accent, but also one's values, one's behaviors certainly are a product of who it is we share our life with. And by the same token, we can be that influence to those around us. We can think about how we're speaking, how we're acting, how we're impacting our family, our friends, our community. We can be the person who says, wait a minute, I need to be different in this moment. I need to recognize bidorotav, the in my generation, in my surroundings phenomenon of what's happening here. And so Noach is a product of his time and also stands in contradistinction to those around him. And he begs the question of what do we do? When do we blend in and when do we stand apart? I wish you a Shabbat Shalom.